Hi guys, Braden from Marques Flooring. Welcome to Thursday training. Today we're going to be touching on all things abrasives. So we've got the guys from Norton here. Nathan, he's going to be going over pretty much everything to do with abrasives. We're going to trial out some different machines and basically go over which abrasives work best for what scenarios. So I'll pass it over to Nathan and we'll go from there.
Alright, hello everybody, Nathan Watt from St. Abrasives in Brisbane. We're going to touch on a few of the products that we use in the floor sanding industry. So we'll start with probably the basic product, which is the aluminium oxide belt. So one of the first belts that was developed. Aluminium oxide is a very tough, durable grain. It can be used on your softwoods and hardwoods. It's one of the older products that are around. It can be on the coarser grits. It's very good for ripping off previous coatings or leveling the floors out. But today we will be trialling the Zirconia belts and the red heat belts. Zirconia is the next generation of grain up from aluminium oxide. Zirconia is nice and sharp. It can be used with either high pressure or low pressure. It resists fracturing a lot more than aluminium oxide, and can be used on a higher speed as well. So next up from that will be the red heat or the ceramic. So the ceramic is the market leader in floor sanding. The main advantage is with it, it is a pure ceramic belt. So every grain is the same size. So the finish on ceramic is perfect. So you get the same size grit spread across the belt. So the overall finish, it saves time, it'll save money, and the overall appearance is much better. Okay, now Braden's just finished with the Zircon or Zirconia belt in a 60 grit. So that was a 2-pack water base that he's just sanded off. As you can see on the belt, there's very little loading of the material, a little bit of light dust on. Still got plenty of edge on the belt. As I said, the Zirconia is a very sharp grain, so it'll keep cutting with medium pressure or can take heavy pressure as well. There's only a small section, so what we'll do is probably go into a red heat belt and see the comparison with one of those. Okay, so Braden's just finished with the 60 grit red heat. And the first thing we did notice is the smoothness on the red heat belt, and you can actually hear it cutting. A little bit difference in sound between the Zirconia and the red heat. The cutting of the red heat sounds very smooth, and if you do look closely, it's probably a bit hard to see. The finish on the 60 grit on the red heat is really good. It's a lot finer. The scratch pattern, even compared to the Zirconia, is a lot cleaner and a lot more uniform as well. As far as the loading goes, there's very little on the belt. It's still got all of its edge. It's only started to sort of cut in. It's one of the main things with red heat is being a ceramic. It needs to fracture down, so it likes high pressure. So it's very good on hard coatings and really good on hard timbers, iron barks, black butts, hardwood. So it likes the pressure, and that it keeps the consistency with the cut as well. Okay, so we've finished with the 100 on the red heat. So one of the main things is the micro fracturing abilities of the grain on the material to just keep wearing consistently. So as it moves through, you keep getting a really consistent finish across the board. The Zirconia in the 100 is still finished very well. Probably a little bit more in the scratch marks, but still a very consistent product and a very long life product as well for the Zirconia. As you can see, the red heat has cut it back really well and gone to the next step from there. So now we're moving on to some edges. So we've got our two main type of edging discs. So we've got the silicon carbide, which is probably one of the older products that we have on the market. But silicon carbide is the hardest and sharpest grain of any of the mineral coatings. So still a very, very good product. It has a very good cut rate. It can work at light pressure as well as hard pressure and gives a very good consistent finish all the way through the material. So they're traditionally the black coloured discs. And then obviously back onto the red heat. So this comes in a full range of products from the edge disc through to the belts and also 150mm Velcros. Same advantage with red heat as in the belt, 100% ceramic grain, so very consistent finish. If you use a 60 grit finish with the edger, you'll get the same finish with the 60 grit belt and as you go through the grits. Paper backed, so it makes it cost effective as well. And we'll put those on and see how we go. Okay, now Braden's just finished with the 80 grit silicon carbide edger. As you can see, it's a really, really nice finish. A slight little scratch pattern through there, but it's leveled the boards really well. And the feel of it is really very smooth, which is what the silicon carbide, the grain does because it's so sharp. It doesn't leave a lot sticking up from the timber. So as far as wear goes on it, it's still got a fair bit of grain on there. Silicon carbide is very sharp, so you will get a lot of life out of the silicon carbide discs as well. Okay, now Braden's just finished with the 80 grit in the red heat. So just from watching it and listening to it, the red heat is just cutting so much cleaner. The noise, you can hear the ceramic just sanding the timber away really, really well. On the disc, there's still so much grit, it hasn't even started to affect it at all. Finish-wise, it was a lot faster compared to the silicon carbide. Finish-wise, it's still, obviously there's a little bit of a scratch pattern through it, but really fast product, especially for speed. If time's of the essence and you want to get through the jobs quicker, or a larger job, still with a really nice consistent cut. So definitely on the red heat. Both perform very well, so we'll move on to the next grit. Now we're going to move on to the Blaze product in a 150mm orbital sander. So the Blaze is a relatively new product in the floor sanding industry. It's been in the industrial market with Norton, St. Gobain for quite a few years now. It's made its way across to the timber industry. Fantastic product, very tough, very durable, D-weight backing on the material, virtually no grain shedding, so the cut is very consistent. Can be used on either the orbitals or the multi-head machines. It's got the main advantage, it's got the hole pattern, so the cyclonic hole pattern. So any dust extraction will remove the bulk of any dust that's left on the job. That's one of the main advantages, as what you're sanding generally wears the grain down. So the Blaze product, we'll put that on and we'll have a look at the performance of that. Okay, so Braden's just finished with the 120 grit 150mm Norton blaze, and as expected, the finish and the performance is unbelievable. The grain just keeps cutting, especially on the harder materials. The finish is absolutely perfect, very, very smooth. There's still 99% of grain on this material, very little dust. As I said, the main advantage is the multi-hole cyclonic setup to take away 90% of the dust, so just keeps the grain working. But yeah, very impressive, really good product for the floor sanding market. And we'll move on to the next range. Okay, now we're into the four-head power drive. We're going to run with the 60 grit in the red heat, 150mm, and Braden's going to level out the rest of the floor and take off any extra coatings. So that's going to be a 60 grit. So we'll see how that one goes.
It's taken off pretty much all the rest of the coating that was on the floor. It's left minimal scratches through the floor, keeping in mind that was 60 grit as well. So normally if we were to go over this then with an 80 grit and 120, the scratches would be that fine that you wouldn't be able to notice them under coating. So it's definitely got the floor nice and flat. Yeah, it's kept minimal scratches, and the discs are still sharp as they can be. So definitely a ceramic disc is a lot better for this style of sanding. Just because with this style of sanding, we do want to keep the scratch pattern down. So yeah, definitely a good ceramic disc is the best for forehead sanding.
Okay, the next product we're looking at is a new addition to the range, or reasonably new. It's called the Sand Dollar disc. Now we've brought this in as a product for obviously in between coats. Comes in 4 different grits, aluminium grain onto a foam backing. So very durable, very good to contours to uneven surfaces. Double-sided, can be reused, can be washed out. So that'll give the product actually quite a bit more life as well, and performs the same as a screen but gives a finer scratch pattern. So the main advantage is under bright lights, halogen lights, stadiums, car showrooms, anywhere that's projecting a lot of light onto a floor, reduces the scratch pattern to virtually nothing. So we'll put that on the machine and watch the performance of the Sand Dollar disc.
So as we can see, it's quite a smooth finish. It's definitely eliminated a lot of swirl marks. Yeah, what I would mainly suggest for floor sanders that they use this disc for is cutting back in between coats, in between your final coats. You know, most houses these days have downlights, you know, LEDs. So what we're trying to eliminate is the scratches within the coating. So by using the Sand Dollar, you're going to eliminate a lot of those marks, which, you know, they work out really economical as far as cost goes versus screens. So they're not a lot extra to lay out to stop you getting those issues with scratches in your coating and stuff like that. So I've just taken the Sand Dollar disc off. filled it. We got both sides. However, we've only done a little bit of a cut back here. It's still pretty much like new, and all you can do with this now is you can go and give it a wash out with the hose, give it a blowout if you like, put it back in your van, and it'll be ready to go again to use on the next floor. You can use the same side, so you'll get a good couple of uses out of it before you need to switch to the other side, and then after that, obviously then you'll replace it. But they are reusable. Unlike your screens, most of the time your screens, you're not going to be able to reuse them a lot of the time. You'll just throw them out, but definitely not with the sand dolly. You can reuse them, so it's good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut the floor back with a 220 red heat screen, and just pretty much to show you how you can cut the floor back with a screen as opposed to the sand dollar. The screen's just a normal process that you would use when cutting the floor back in between coats. Sometimes you'll do your screening before you actually throw any coats on at all. You might use 100 grit to take out any final scratches, but yeah, you will use a screen in between coats. What the screen does is it actually creates a mechanical key, because without that, the coating that you're going to put on won't actually bond to the timber. It'll basically just peel away, because there's nothing for it to actually stick to. So what the screen does is it actually puts in small scratches that you can't really see to the eye, and that actually then gives a key for the coating to actually stick to the floor. So that's what basically the process that we're doing now. So we've just used a red heat 220 screen. It's cut the floor back perfectly. There is minimal to no scratches in this with this screen either. They work quite well. Definitely, we've only done a slight, not even a square meter here. You'd definitely be able to use this screen again. It's cut it back quite nicely, provided the coating that was on this was fully cured. It's been fully cured for probably 2 months. So, it's done quite well cutting that back with minimal to no scratches in it at all.
Okay, we'll wrap up for today. So we've had a good chance to see a lot of the different Norton products in action, floor sanding products. We've seen the red heat, we've seen the blaze, we've seen the durite silicon carbide. Hopefully everyone's gained a little bit out of this, and next time you're looking for your floor sanding products, Norton will definitely be your first choice. And we'll hand it over to Braden.
Thanks guys for tuning in. It's been another good third Thursday training. So this one obviously on abrasive. So we're having a special, so 10% off selected abrasives. So make sure you pop in store and ask me about it. Just bring up the third Thursday training, and we'll be able to help you out with that. So next month we're going to be doing our next episode, which is going to be on, we're going to have the guys from Bonner come down. They're going to be doing dustless sanding and hard plating. So one of the machines that we used today, they're going to be touching in a bit more detail on that machine, along with dustless sanding, which is quite helpful. Obviously, most jobs these days, that is a big challenge, is trying to keep the dust down. So we're going to be showing you what machines you can use for that. So yeah, just wanted to thank the guys from Norton for coming down and helping us out. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you.